What is going on, fellas? Lady fellas, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we've got some really cool new stuff. We've got a new Adamancipator card revealed for Rise of the Duelist, whenever we get that. As well as a whole new wave of Jinzo support, which is so cool. Jinzo is one of the classic monsters from the Battle City classic Yu-Gi-Oh days, and so that's really cool. We see some really cool cards there, but yeah, I don't want to waste too much time. Let's just get into it. I just woke up after being asleep for like 3.5 hours because I woke up, checked my phone, saw this, and I just couldn't go back to sleep. I really want to make a video on it. It's really excited. So without further ado, let's jump in with Adamancipator Friends. Let's get this one out of the way first. This is a normal spell card. It's very good in my opinion. This card reads, for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except rock monsters. Also, excavate cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of rock monsters you control plus 5. And if you do, you can add one to your hand, one excavated rock whose level is equal to or lower than the number of cards excavated. So also place the rest on the bottom deck in any order. So pretty much what this is doing is this is a sort of like a search card. I mean, it's not a targeted search, but assuming you're playing a rock archetype, you do get to look at, like, essentially, let's say most of the time you're activating this first to try and like set up your hand before you try and make plays. You activate this, you get to excavate 5 cards because you control no rock monsters, so it's just 5. The more monsters you control would be higher and higher. And then if you rip anything that is 5 or lower that is a rock monster, you can immediately add it to your hand. And then the rest go back into the bottom of the deck. Keep in mind you cannot special summon anything except rock monsters for the rest of the turn. That is definitely a restriction, but you're only going to be playing this in decks that play almost exclusively rock monsters. So I'm not too beat up about this effect at all. This card's really nice. I think one of the problems with Adamancipator is it is a deck that does rely on RNG, and it doesn't have any search cards. You just have to open Seeker, or you just have to open Analyzer or Researcher. You have no other way to get your miners. There's only 9 of them if you max out all copies, and otherwise you could just end up in a situation where like you can't actually get to the other one, or can't actually get anything going. You just kind of are in a situation where you're like, normal summon Kawakimaru Guardian or Overload and just try and like pass and last a turn. That's like, sometimes that's just how you gotta do it, unfortunately. So this is a really nice card for them. Consistency, just getting to those cards. I mean, even if you're only doing 5, let's look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Those whole decks are like 10 spells with like 30 monsters. You're gonna find something you can use. I almost guarantee it. It's a very high chance, so definitely will take that. Other than that, I think this card's also fairly playable in other rock decks, right? Like, I'm thinking about, I mean, of course, Magnet Warriors, potentially. Yeah, just like, you're already playing probably all 3, you're probably playing between like, I don't know, 10 and 12 of the Magnet Warriors. You might be playing Sentry Soldier of Stone. You might be playing Adamancipator extenders, just because like Seeker and Researcher can just jump on the field and then summon another one after excavating. Like, and so like this could be good in those decks. This could be good in Gem Knights. I know some of the Gem Knight monsters in the main deck actually aren't even rock monsters, so like that could be a little clunky, but like I guess it depends specifically on if you're playing enough rocks to make this card work, because I don't think if you're Gem Knight FTKing somebody, I don't think they need like to summon other like non-rock monsters for the most part. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the deck too in depth, but like those are just some examples of other decks that could make use of this card. But yeah, a really nice card nonetheless. Now let's move to some Jinzo stuff. We'll start with the Menacing Jinzo. This is a level 7 Dark Machine effect monster with 2400 attack, 1500 defense, 2 hard ones per turn effects. The first effect says if either player possesses a trap or traps on field or in the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand, but its level becomes 6 for the rest of the turn. Second effect, during either player's main phase. As a quick effect, you contribute this card to special summon a Jinzo from your hand or grave. Then you can look at all spells and traps your opponent controls, and destroy all traps among them. I'm assuming this is look at like all set spell or traps, and destroy like the set ones even. It's pretty cool. Like not only, even if you don't wipe it, you get to look at every kind of card your opponent has set on the field, which has some value in and of itself. One thing I'll say, this is not the strongest card. You have to already have Jinzo in hand or grave for that second effect. I like that it's a quick effect, but it tributes its cost, which means you can be called by the grave. It means if you do get negated, you did just lose even your big body on board, which matters. And if you're tributing to look at all your opponent's set spell and traps and destroy them, if they have any solemn judgments or strikes, like they're just activating them, because like why let the rest of their back row go when they could just like stop you right then and there, and you wouldn't get a summon of Jinzo. So I think this card definitely has its weaknesses, but I think it's a fine card for the archetype. It gets out on the field fairly easily. There just needs to be a trap anywhere on the field or in the graveyard by you or your opponent, so you could play traps yourself just to get this kind of setup, which is nice. I think it's an okay card. I don't think it's the greatest card for them, but yeah. Moving on, we have Psycho Bounder, a level 4 light machine effect monster with 1700 attack, 1000 defense, and another 2 hard once per turn effects. The first effect reads, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add 1 Jinzo or 1 spell or trap that specifically lists Jinzo in its text from your deck to your hand. That's pretty good. I mean, that searches any card in the new support, in the old support, anything. It searches Jinzo Ejector, searches Jinzo, searches the quick play spell we had revealed a little bit ago, I think. It searches the guy up above, the guy down below, the 2 spells down below. Like, it searches everything, so that's always good. A Stratos. And then the second effect, if another monster you control is attacked by an opponent's monster before damage calculation, you can destroy both the attacking monster and this card. That's also pretty nice. I mean, because if you just leave this on the field with Jinzo or with something that you do want to protect, it does kind of floodgate your opponent battle phase wise into having to go after this guy before ever having to go after them, and they might not have the resources, the manpower to actually go after both. So he bites the bullet, your other monster lives, and they're kind of in a pickle. Plus, if your opponent doesn't read, they will just attack Jinzo and lose their monster, which is pretty cool. So I think this card is phenomenal for the deck. He's really, really cool. Next up, we have Psycho Giga Sniper. This is like a Fiend Mega Cyber support card. It's pretty cool. It's a level 6 Dark Machine effect monster with 2200 attack, 1200 defense. You can only special summon them with its own effect once per turn, and then its second effect is also once per turn. That first effect reads, if your opponent controls more cards that are spells and traps than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. And the second effect, when this card declares an attack on an opponent's effect monster while you control a Jinzo, you contribute this card, place that opponent's monster face up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous trap. Okay, so the first effect, it's pretty easy to jump out going second. Going first, though, obviously he might just be stuck in hand, and I think this might be an archetype that wants to kind of go first. I'm not even entirely sure, but it can come out. After turn 1, he can come out pretty easily. One thing I will say about the second effect is it does take that monster and place it in your spell and trap zone, apparently, as a continuous trap. What that does is, well, we'll get to a card later. That's what I'm thinking of. There's a card later we'll get to. I don't think this removal is that crazy. One thing I will say is that it is non-targeting, non-destruction removal, but you have to go into battle phase, already control a Jinzo, and you have to tribute this card. If this card didn't have to be tributed, I'd actually be into this. Using your battle phase and controlling a Jinzo is like, whatever. It's still not great because it's a little hard to set up. But just being able to like almost Boral load, like take a monster and place it in your spell and trap zone, it's pretty good, but unfortunately that's not how it works. You do have to tribute him. You do have to trade him in for that. So it's a lot, but maybe it's a card that you play because it's just a certain out to certain cards that like you otherwise can't out in this deck. I don't know. Those are just my thoughts on it, but I don't think it's that crazy, but it is at the very least still like a pretty easy summon to the field that's 2200. So take that for what it's worth. Next up, we have Law of the Universe, a normal spell that you can only activate a card with its name once per turn. This card reads, your opponent can set one trap directly from your hand or deck. If they do, special summon a Jinzo from your deck. If they do not, add one Jinzo monster that specifically lists one Jinzo or one monster that specifically lists Jinzo in its text from your deck to your hand. Okay, so there are some ruling things going on here. Not ruling, but like translation things going on here. I'm not sure if this is or one monster or one card that specifically lists Jinzo in its text. So just keep that in mind. This could be extended into also being able to search the Jinzo spell and trap cards as well. So just keep that in mind. I'm not entirely sure. But still, either way, it's still pretty nice. Yeah. Like, a lot of people are going to be like, man, I don't think I'm going to take a trap, even if I'm playing a trap deck, because it won't be able to activate that turn. And they are already guaranteed to get Jinzo, which just kills my trap. So, you know what I mean? So they probably won't be taking it. They'll probably let you search and see if they can get you. Either you aren't even able to get it out, or you're in a situation where getting it out makes you waste extra resources, that kind of thing. But yeah, this is a good search card. You either get a free special or you're getting a search. I'll take it. I think that's a good search card, for sure. And the last card we have here today is Contact with the Universe. It's a continuous spell with 2 hard ones per turn effects. This is just an Esperoba card. That's all this is. First effect, you can send to the graveyard one monster you control that is owned by your opponent to special summon a machine from your hand or graveyard. I'm pretty sure what all this is like it pairs with this guy, Psycho Giga Sniper. When you take an opponent's monster and place it in your spell and trap zone, I believe that counts as you controlling a monster your opponent controls, because it is a monster card. Even if it's being treated as a spell or trap on the field, or just a continuous trap on the field, I think it is technically a monster that is owned by your opponent. So I don't know entirely, but I think that's how this works. It's the only way this card has synergy with the archetype, so I think that's what it is. And you get to reborn or special a machine from your hand. Actually, that's kind of good in a way. So just gets you another body on board. And the second effect, during your opponent's draw phase, when they conduct their normal draw while you control Jinzo, you can declare a card type, monster, spell, or trap. Look at the drawn card or cards, if they do multiple, like Nightmare Unicorn stuff, drawing extra cards on draw phase. And if the declared card among them is correct, the one that you called, send this card to the graveyard, and if you do that, draw one card. This is one more thing that I'm not entirely sure on. This right here. This could be another translation thing. It is a very early translation. I'm not sure if this is send this card to the graveyard to draw a card, or send the card that you called correctly in your opponent's hand to the graveyard, then draw a card. I'm really not sure on how that's going to work, how that translation works out. I hope it's the latter. I hope you get to send the card your opponent draws that you called correctly to the grave, because if not, this card sucks hot ass. This card is absolutely and completely useless. If you have to send this card to the graveyard to draw a card on your opponent's draw phase, like, what's the point in playing this card? You might as well have just played something different and drawn a different card in your hand, because this card is just so slow to just draw a card, and it makes up the advantage, but makes it up a turn later, and you lose it from the field. It's not even like you can do this every single one of your opponent's draw phase and be like, oh, I'm continually drawing an extra card during my opponent's draw phase. That's pretty cool. No, you do it once, and then you have to send this card. I really hope this is supposed to be send your opponent's card to the graveyard, because otherwise this card is just like hot cheeks. It really is not good. But we'll have to see. I don't know. I hope that's how it works. We're just going to have to see and find out how that works later. If it does work the other way, though, if it does send your opponent's card that you called correctly to the graveyard to let you draw, this card's actually very interesting, and not just this, but other strategies as well. I would say spirals. Maybe spiral control could be a thing, and you can actually play a little bit of hand control with them, because you're already looking at their deck with drones, stacking their deck. But then this card, then they don't even get the card that you stacked on their deck. You call it on the draw, and they have to discard, and then they have to send it, and then you draw a card. You're getting extra pluses. You're getting a free draw every one of your opponent's draw phases, and it feels like your opponent can't get out of a weird control loop. I don't know. I think it's interesting, or maybe something like Mermail. Once you've already ripped the card out of their hand, you know the kind of archetype they're playing. You're like, oh, it's Altergeist. So I'm gonna activate this, and I'm on your draw phase and call Trap, and then you actually get an extra Trap discard like out of their hand, like and draw a card. So there's some cool applications there. I really hope it works the way that makes it actually like a usable card. I hate it when Konami just makes cards that are like completely due, and this is completely due if it works the way it's listed here. But we'll have to see on that translation how it actually turns out. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for all the new cards. I think they're really cool. I think Jinzo has always been a really cool card, a really dominant card at different phases of the game. Obviously not now, because there's not a ton of trap decks running around, but I still think it's a cool deck, and I'm still happy to see this support here. I think it's interesting for sure, and I definitely will consider picking it up when it comes out. And then the Adamancipator card is just good for any rock archetype, like actually any rock deck, so it's pretty cool as well. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more news updates from your boy, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.